What is good, fellas? Paychart Panda back from VSF, and I wasn't able to cover the patch notes, so I figured what I will do instead is ask top level players what they think about their character after the changes. What's up, fellas? Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Like and subscribe, check out the membership system, and check out the kofi if you want to support me. But let's get into it. And let's start with a pretty simple one, guy Kiske. After messaging Kensei, who's a pretty nasty NA Kai, takes part in the battle royale many times, Sajikli, you name it. Pretty solid Kai. He had this to say: I haven't played yet, but from what I've seen in the changes, it make him more consistent. No stun dipper, sour spots, or shock state running out of mid combos. Shock state stun dipper or knockdown is good too, since the shock state stun dipper gave nothing before and just used to use up the shock state. His pressure is now weaker because of the nerf to Orange Wild Assault, but this applies to the other characters too. He's better this patch, and some of his worst matchups got nerfed, on top of it being much less scrubby meta dev team definitely focused on. So what Kensei is saying here is that basically because of the changes to shock state and the way it activates with stun dipper, he certainly got buffed. Orange Wild Assault hurt him, but it hurt the rest of the cast as well, and it kind of makes the game a lot less scrubby. So in his viewpoint, this is a big up. So I'd probably say we'll put it in the slight buff category. It's all Badguy. For this one we had to go to Twitter to see Scarah, who's a pretty solid Badguy, tends to post stuff whenever she can about Badguy. She had this to say, which is easier confirms on 2S. Fro no longer does what it does versus Bedman, so that means the OP is more consistent. And they hit Kara Wild for, which was very odd. Super PRC is gone for Badguy, which isn't that big of a deal, but it's certainly a defensive tool that went missing. So basically 2S does more damage for its routings, but one of the main problems is that it's kind of like you have to send the confirm, like you have to be on top of it. You miss that confirm, you're gonna miss the damage, essentially, from what I'm reading. Tools like 6S, because the system mechanics became weaker, because you use Orange Wild Assault. However, that's punishable in block now, so 6S kind of became a weaker button because of that. Obviously, Orange Wild Assault did hit Badguy, as that led to a lot of these safer confirms. Now Badguy is a lot less safer. For the next character, let's take a look at May. This one I decided to ask Insert, a player that's taken part in Battle Royale many a times, one of our favourites for sure, and she had this to say: I think she's really good this patch, not necessarily because of the buffs, to be completely honest, counter at 2S is whatever, but because of the other character changes and system mechanics. Top tiers got hella nerfed, and the guard crush change doesn't affect her that much. Orange Wild Assault is kinda sucky, but it also affects everyone else, and May Orange Wild Assault OB was kinda mid anyways. All that results is in a strong ass character. She definitely got harder to play because of the Orange Wild Assault changes though. You can't really just slot with her, at least at high level. 5H spam doesn't really work, and you need to actually have funnies do well with her. But if you can play her, she's probably top 2 or top 3. This is a pretty big thing to admit. When it comes to the other characters getting nerfed and the system mechanics kind of working in May's favour, it kind of allows this character that's been kind of in limbo to probably shine. So if we see more Mays doing well in bracket, like slash down bits, maybe winning brackets, might be the reason why. So thanks for the input, Insert. Zato-Van. For this one I decided to ask an old friend, Zato-Van, pretty cool guy. He didn't have a lot to say about Zato, and I feel like the Zatos are trying to keep it secret, so it is what it is. But basically he said this: the new special move is somewhat useless, but the other buffs and nerfs to top tiers will make him quite good. But basically they're thinking that the new move isn't all that, and I'm like, really? Like, it's only been a day, surely there's gotta be some applications. But I think this is the initial impressions. I kinda saw the same thing from Jonathan Tenney. Up next, let's look at Happy Chaos, and quite mental. Basically a lot of people consider HC to be in the broken category yet again. Put it simply, people think that Happy Chaos is going to be a part of the main meta because of how strongly they buffed his character. So I ask Milkshake, who's an up-and-coming Happy Chaos, who I believe to be one of the best in the region. Got top 8 VSF, just saying. Say add Milkshake, and they think that Happy Chaos is going to be top 3, top 4, unless Pot gets nerfed. Looking at what Tiger Pop was saying on Twitter, basically, they think Happy Chaos might be like pretty damn strong this patch, simply because they didn't hit J2K, and they made it so that the clone is a lot stronger to use in terms of comboage. So yeah, Happy Chaos got a lot stronger, and It's gonna be scary for us, that's for sure. Bedman, for this one I decided to ask the Wrestler. The GOAT themselves absolutely love Resil, one of my boys. To which they said this: I got nerfed undeservedly, but he didn't use White Wild Assault as much aim. To say the least, White Wild Assault RC, so system mechanics didn't harm as much as others, but HP nerf stings, but it's also 20-ish HP. Bomb not going fills off screen is a quality of life, because bomb zaps worked on skinning your characters. Like you'll do JH to JD into the shot, and the H air will go off screen and not hit. Mainly noticeable if you air trigger right on someone's head in the corner. Super PRC kind of sucks, but Bedman used it far less than the others. Time to learn backdash BRC, so nerfed a little bit, but others brought far closer to his level. Overall, Resil's thinking that Bedman got hit pretty hard, right? The only time that they do White Wild Assault is if they had a bar in the bag for RC, so it affects them pretty heavily compared to Goldlewis, who can just throw it out and be okay with the position he's in. And of course, becoming more squishy certainly hurt the character, so Resil's coming at this with the viewpoint of most of it is kinda bad, but there's a couple of good silver linings in there. And the system mechanics probably don't help out Bedman as much as it would for the others. Losing super RCs, like whatever, but YRC being pushed out is kinda bad for Bedman. Can't set up the setups that they love doing with Head Bomb. Also ask Resil their thoughts on Dizzy, as they also play Dizzy. Basically, a lot of the time, people are thinking Dizzy's playable now. Crazy. She got better in neutral control, and her ulti is now always scary with the fishes. But resource feeding and no defensive options, worst 2k in the game, she might still be bad, but not bottom 1 anymore. At least bottom to low tier, which I'm like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, walking away from this, Resil thinks that Bedman, slight nerf, and Dizzy, decent buff, but nothing to walk away from saying this character's meta, but a lot of the things that affect Dizzy are certainly a positive. For this one, I decided to ask a fellow player of Tower, I've played him many times, pretty decent fella, Doritooooo on the Eno. And this is what they have to say. I think the nerf to her MLA, for those who don't know, Mad Love Agito is the guard crush. Change makes it more reactable and is more slow, but gives a bounce and that makes it more easy to combo from H-dive because it is more slow. But the 5H change gives us a combo in far slash at 2S we didn't have. That makes neutral a little better because you can do far slash at 2 into 5H or 2S, not full range, into a 5H. But I feel Eno is about the same. She is worse in pressure but a little better in neutral with more combos to work with. So to put it simply, they believe because the combo game went up, the character has more avenues to work with. So the character can certainly do bits in terms of pokage and confirms. But the system mechanics didn't really help her as much, as Doritooooo did not mention this. This might be a slight nerf, if I had to guess. Up next is Elphelt, and I decided to ask Digits, who is a high-level Elphelt Valentine within the EU scene, one of my favourites to watch for sure. And they gave me a lot to work with. Reading here, you're gonna see a lot. This is the most detailed I think we've gotten for the questions that I asked. And to start us off, the 5HH change now staggers instead of a launch, expanding its hitbox forwards. Incredibly good as it allows her hit confirm better into things like 214k or to go into Wild Assault to get the wall splat. So this is actually pretty good for the character. Combo game went up. The Rika change, you can no longer reset Rika with S-Rika. You have to have a maximum of 2 follow-ups so you can enter with the Rika. This hurts our combo games as it means less juggles from the S-Rika. And in pressure, this means she can no longer just keep resetting Rika. So she's kind of been limited with the tools that she can use with her Rika, like pressure, the bump, bump, bump. In the end, her pressure and combo game is certainly off because she can't juggle as much, and in terms of resets, she needs meter to do so now. So here's the big one, and that's Bomb Fist. Why is this a big one? And that's because it now gives hard knockdown, so she can get Oki afterwards. This means Bomb Vest can now be used mid-screen instead of being at the wall, so one of the best supers in the game got more usages out of it, and I think that's very strong. Digits even lists that there's a safe jump cell from mid-screen that you can use. All this means is now if you RPS correctly against Elphelt's Vest on, you will get rewarded as you should. The big thing about the Bomb Vest is that it disappears on hit. It's no longer something that sticks on, so despite the fact that it got a very strong buff, it also got a very significant nerf, meaning if you place a hit well, you'll escape such a nasty set play tool. Probably weak against DP characters, but strong against anyone else without meter. All consensus from Digits is she got a very small slap on the wrist, but overall, really amazing benefits from top tiers being nerfed. She's about the same and didn't really lose anything that other than a couple of combos. Overall doing very good. So their viewpoint is that Elphelt stayed the same. There wasn't any crazy nerfs, but there were some very good changes overall, making the Rickas a little less cumbersome and nasty to fight against, and less buggy for the Elphelt. And of course the Bomb Jacket getting a major usage of getting hard knockdown mid-screen means she can sell whatever she wants, but the weakness of if you hit it, it does disappear. So good changes overall, and I would say this is probably a character that stayed the same with a nice rework. The Venom buffs. I wasn't able to ask a player because I don't know who plays them. I'm being honest. I'm being so honest. Not a lot of people are probably about playing this character. But Venom, from what I'm seeing in the changes, is kinda ridiculous. Genuinely ridiculous. I think Big Plane or someone like that went on to say the devs thought his main issue was damage. This was certainly not the case. You better be ready for top tier Venom. To put it simply, Venom may be a pretty strong character to go up against now. Maybe scary to deal with. For the next one, I decided to ask KaitouDandy their thoughts on Slayer. And it just makes sense. Scottish lad that knows how to play the character insanely well. And a top level one at that. Well, he had this to say. Overall, Slayer's doing well this patch because his bad matchups became less powerful, and Slayer himself has barely changed. They slightly upgraded his defense with K-Mappa, now being comboable from 2p, whereas before he'd get really bad reward from non-counter 2p on defense. The Master's Hammer's change is very minor, with the big effect being the backdashing Meaty Master Hammer is more powerful and it is seemingly harder to combo from Meaty Master's Hammer. The biggest change and the change I like the least is the 2H change. I don't think it's all bad for Slayer, but the fact that they already made the move significantly risky to use and it may reward much harder access doesn't feel good. Again though, I don't think that it's a bad change for Slayer, and overall, he's a pretty big winner of this patch. KaitouDandy is in the believing situation that Slayer definitely got stronger this patch, despite getting nerfed on one of his key tools. So, we might see more Slayers perform higher and higher due to a lot of the system mechanics and the nerfs that happen to the rest of the roster. So this is a pretty decent win. Asuka, now this was an interesting one. Decided to ask Strelitzia, who's a very amazing Asuka player. I've been playing the character since as soon as he came out. Draw super is good now. It used to drain 90% mana, now it's around 50. You can now wall stomp people with Ice Card. And the Ice Card allows for some cheeky resets and setups, meaning Strelitzia believes that Asuka got some more sauce with their combo game and setup game. Overall, a net positive for Asuka, and because of the other system mechanics and the other characters getting nerfed, Asuka might shine this patch just due to the fact that they buffed the things that needed buffed and hit the characters that needed hit. So I'm going to put this as a big buff for sure. Goldlewis! Now for this one I decided to ask Cheryo. Everyone knows who Cheryo is. A nasty Goldlewis from NA, one of the top competitors. And they made it very simple for me as well, which is, I think the changes are definitely bad, but nothing that will destroy him. If anything, these changes will make him less lazy character, and that's cool with me. Simply put it, White Wild Assault RC doesn't exist, so a lot of those aggressive plays are put down. Cheryo believes that this will actually make the character a bit more fundamental, and Goldlewis may return. Giovanna, now I decided to ask Gecko Squirrel his thoughts for this one, considering Gecko Squirrel is a nasty Giovanna, nasty Baiken, and a nasty Unika, so I got the 1 in 3 for this one. He's really liking Gio's changes. You basically could only use 214k and Chive as a frame kill, or get off me too, so the changes to it, the Star Up, are super nice, meaning it's going to get used a lot more, maybe to poke with, or maybe to actually do combos with. Baiken losing her shimmy with TKU's answered sucks, but not been touched that bad, and because everyone else is getting nerfed, she'll probably do better, but at the end of the day, she has been nerfed, so slight nerf to Baiken. And Unika got exactly what I expected, but I think the overall mechanic changes are going to hit her harder than some people expect. She'll be fine, but she definitely didn't win with the changes. Gecko Squirrel believing that Gio definitely got buffed, Baiken maybe got a slight nerf, and Unika got hit by the system changes and her overall character toolkit. Ramlethal, for this one I decided to ask SQ. You all know who she is, an amazing content creator that plays Ram, also competes pretty top level. And to put it simply, she believes that Rock seems useless and the Orange Wild Assault change is bad for her, as that's where a lot of her mid-screen combos came from. Still can combo from Darrow, so her main strength is there, and that's all I've got. That's what she said. She kept it simple, not a lot there, but she does believe that Ram has been hit pretty hard in this patch, but Darrow still existing is a main key strength for the character, so she's pretty happy with it overall, but she doesn't like the fact that Rock has become useless, so maybe a slight nerf. Potemkin! I mean, I'm going to tell you my thoughts. I'm a top level player, right? Put it simply, Potemkin kinda got hit on the Hammerfall changes. I mean, if you get an aerial 5H or backdash catch 5H, Oki doesn't exist. And of course, Potemkin Buster got changed, so the Oki is a lot harder to get, but you can still get it with a 5P or a frame-tight close slash. It's pretty tight, but it did affect him pretty hard, I would say. And I'd say you get some thoughts from Andross, as it just makes sense. That is the pop brother. Train me up and all that. Depending on the Hammerfall changes, as we saw, definitely affects him, but it's not too bad. He says the rest is okay, and Slide Head is an ass move now. Avoid using it. And he said forward Mega Fist might be interesting to use, as it actually lets you get a 2k pickup now. Honestly, I think Pop maybe got away with further. Of course, the system mechanics like hit him decently. I would say the Blue Wild Assault, the way Stagger works now. All the character is probably still solid, at least top 5, top 6 if I had to guess. But a definite nerf for sure. See me record this at different parts of the day, but the next person I decided to ask was DeafHeaven, who is an Axel player in the NA region. Nasty player, one of my absolute favourites to watch, as he's one of the few in NA that still play Axel. And he said this: 6k change got solid confirms and extend combos even after a 2k opener, which is really goes for his toolkit. And I don't think English is his first language, so do mind the spell. And that's the way it is with Doritooooo and some of the other ones, so don't immediately think they're bad at typing, okay? Hard Knockdown makes his zoning stronger, since he can keep up the zoning and try set up on Hard Knockdown, which is good. His matchups got better since they were nerfed, and I think some of the bad matchups from the old patch are even at least. YRC changed benefits his defense, but he still has the same core issues on defense and guts. He thinks this is a big positive for Axel. Axel got buffed a ton, and because of the system mechanics and the nerfs also went up, so like there was two big factors that are considering this a big buff for Axel, but does feel like defense is a core issue, which of course should be a core issue for this character, right? That's the whole thing, you're playing a zoner, so defense should be lacking. Overall, he thinks the character's pretty strong, and maybe we'll see more of him in the competitive meta. Up next is Leo, who's a Scottish player, and she's pretty good at the game. Top competitor in my opinion, but doesn't take part in the tournament scene as often as I think she should. Last, she plays Bridget, and at a pretty decent level as well. Very, very solid level, so I asked her thoughts on the character in the current state, and this is what she had to say. First off is, of course, the bug that's on right now. That's right, Bridget can kind of break the game in soft lock during dust, so there's that. Up says Leo thinks that the character has pretty much just been solid. Thinks that the roll does more damage, and that's pretty good, and the air rock the baby can be comboed into. It's situational, but the situations it comes into is very nice, as it leads to hard knockdown, and is one of the strongest wall break enders currently for Bridget. She also has an unblockable like Potemkin, kind of like Giovanna, but with Little Roger, but it's a little harder to do. Belief is that the character is stronger without a doubt, dealing more damage, having more setups, and of course the system mechanics working in her favour, you know, if the other characters get nerfed and all that, so it's only natural this character should shine. So in her opinion, slight buff, but nothing too crazy. Might see her more in the meta. Up next is Faust, and he didn't get any changes, and I went to Izzy's Twitter for this one, as it was very clear and open to everyone, and to put it simply, this character is just not that good. Didn't get any foreign buffs, and a lot of the opinions from the Faust mains believing that Arxis kind of hates them, and I don't blame them because they haven't got anything substantial, and the only good thing they walked away from was a conversion off of 6H to do with items, which is a very, very situational situation. Well, they feel like Faust has stayed the same, but has no form of staying power, so at the bottom, sadly, as he just thinks his character is just not worth playing, but we'll still play him. Respect to Izzy. Up next is Leo Whitefang, and I actually went to one of EU's boys, Spoon, who plays Leo, and there's not a lot of EU brothers that play Leo, and this guy really plays him with the unga to the bunga. They had multiple things to say to me, so for example, Leo is probably still a solid character, maybe top 7 or something like that instead of like top 3. The other thing is that the back turn H is a big deal, as the defender has multiple avenues to escape from scary pressure. Losing the knockdown from HDP was a pretty big deal, as Leo can no longer have a 5k confirm that leads to his back turn stance that is very effective for Leo. Meter, he gets less opportunities to start and back turn in neutral, so in neutral he has to work for his back turn. And talking to him, I was like, you're believing that he's a little less unga with his bunga, and he essentially told me, yes, that this current version of Leo is a little less unga, but there are still some things that he'll do that are unga bunga, like 2D and neutral, right? But going into back turn is a little bit more difficult, and they need to work for it. Up next is Anji, and I decided to ask 2 top level Anji mains, one from England, being Cryo, an absolutely amazing one, and one from Scissors from America. I know America's massive and there's a lot of cover, but I'm not getting specific. But they both kind of came to the same consensus that 2H is a bit of a gimmick, and Fish against any form of projectile is now a bad special move. Scissors even says that she thinks that the Fish nerf is the biggest thing to the character, kinda leaving Anji to be weaker than when he was last patch. But Cryo talking about how some of the changes to matchups made Anji a little bit stronger compared to the previous patch. Yeah, more even-ish, but it does help him a lot, despite the fact he lost a ton of things like the Fish being plus on block. While Cryo thinks that Anji stayed the same, with minor changes definitely affecting him, just believes that the damages went down for Anji, which sucks. The Fish is heavily effective, being bad against any form of neutral where you have to fight a projectile character like Dizzy, Venom, or Asuka. I think 2H is whatever. And both of them think that YRC is a pretty harsh nerf, as spinning through it doesn't give you anything. Orange Wild still definitely hurts, but it's not too much of a big deal from what I'm hearing. Most of the combos are certainly weaker due to the risk changes, as that is how Anji got most of his damage. At the end of the day, one believes that Anji got a lot weaker, and one believes that Anji was about the same. Cryo, with the mentality of characters about the same, there's some minor things that suck, but that's it. It says there's kinda in the dooming state, where she thinks that the character is not as clean as he could be. So it's good to see these outcomes from 2 high-level players from different parts of the world. And the next one is Sin. I decided to ask 2 more players yet again, one being Dami and one being Tatachu. And it's very funny because they both typed to me in professional ways. It was almost like there's a thing with the Sin players. I'm telling you, they're both very clever people. Chu kind of came at me with a more optimistic view, and Dami kind of came at me with the view that tends to happen sometimes, where it's a bit more sees the realistic avenue, sees the weaker aspects of the character. As we all know, when you play a character, you can see your character's weaknesses more than anyone else. So to start with Pikachu, he talks about how overall the character has been nerfed on a lot of aspects, but they still believe that Sin is still solid and neutral, and he has a very decent matchup chart, but his weaknesses certainly offset the absurd strength that he had, and now his weaknesses are very, very present. So he's much more interesting in play, but much more difficult to master, even as a list of nerfs that hit him. And I'm like, oh, this is good. There's even some minor things there, like safe jumps being easier to do against low profile. But the main thing is that the hoof stomp and the way it works is a lot different and a lot weaker. Harder to get a combo off unless you've got the meter for stamina. He also showed me the damage comparisons with and without risk on combos. And you can see that the damage that he does now took a significant hit with and without risk, and it was the main way that Sins were able to get their damage. So Pachu is telling me that he likes what the character has become, he feels like there's more skill to it. But at the end of the day, these were some hefty nerfs, and he doesn't think the character's top tier anymore. Because Dami kinda told me that he thinks that the character's finished. Yes, Dami kinda came in with the approach that he thinks that the main thing that made the character so solid was the fact that he can make small interactions into big ones. That was Sin's strength, that's what he does with stamina and meter. But unfortunately, because of the way they changed the character, he doesn't do that as much. And when he goes to do it, he's using resources a ton, and he's not going to have what he used to have to do all the damage that he did and break the wall. And the main problem with Sin is that his frame data is a bit off. He's a little bit easier to whiff punish compared to others, and he's minus on hit on a lot of his tools, so he has to rely on the specials. Whereas Pachu thinks that he's pretty solid and neutral, Dami sees the weakness of being able to be whiff punishable and punishable on hit, and believing that that strength, that weakness that's present, always has been, is going to shine even more compared to last patch because Sin had more things to cover that. Now he doesn't, and if he does, it's a bit more risky. But he does say he'll still main the character, which is awesome. Right now, he thinks that Sin is pretty useless. So these are 2 viewpoints from 2 of the best Sins in the world, one being from EU, one being from NA. And I think there's a lot to take in here. Like, I believe if you play Sin, you want to listen to these 2. You're getting some good feedback. This is Abba, and I decided to ask Paita. Absolutely love Paita, one of my favorite players in the Pandemonium. She does bits every time. So I figured an easy one to ask, for sure. She basically told me that Abba's winning this patch. Like saying that the curb stomp was definitely nerfed and a little bit harder to use, and that Bridget might become a pain, and Dizzy and Venom being playable were a bit rough as well. But the grab change is huge, even stating that the character is playing Street Fighter 6. That is correct. This character got extremely buffed as the throw no longer uses Jealousy Rage, and Paya brings up that this is a huge thing. Abba's throw was already pretty strong as is for Oki and setting up Jealousy mix, but they couldn't get into it as it used so much Jealousy meter. So she's looking at the character like, because we can do this now, this character is a shining example of offense if they're allowed to do whatever the hell they want. So she thinks that the character has the best throw in the game compared to someone like Baiken, so you gotta keep that in mind. Has a ton of benefits, and a lot of bad matchups being nerfed certainly help the character, so she thinks it's a massive buff for sure. She was very helpful, gave me a ton of info, and we're walking away with a lot of info indeed. Up next, I decided to ask a Johnny main, and who better to ask than Goose, the multi-time top 8 in Pandemonium, one of my boys, and also bet me a VSF making 9th place, so I think his input is worth the value. He put it like this: Johnny got really hit. Johnny by far is probably the most nerfed character in the game next to Sin, if you go from Dami's perspective. Basically, he can't enforce pressure like he used to because Wild Assault being minus on block, and of course Guard Crush changes affecting the character. You can YRC it now. His dash is so bad now that any character that can set up from distance like Abba get to set up off on Johnny hitting things like Mistfinder and 5H, so you can't get punished for hitting things mid-screen. His backdash nerf doesn't mean much in the neutral because even though it does matter, he always used it as setup distance, which is still fine, it really hurts on defense because he doesn't have anything good on defense. He just has a lot of rewards off of being right. Basically, Goose believes this version of Johnny is a bit more risky. As we see, there's a lot of pushback on these normals now, and they've made them a lot slower, so I believe ArcSys want to make this character a bit more slower and fundamental, wanted to play neutral, and wanted to play a slower game, instead of being a very super can do everything whenever he wants character. It's not even the fact that he cares that the character's worse, it's that it feels shit to play. It's like swinging through mud, as a lot of the Johnny mains have been saying. Card lost a lot of execution as well. That's another thing that Johnny mains are finding unfun because they liked it. They feel like they're being restricted now. But yeah, it seems like a lot of the Johnnies are upset with the changes, believing that he was heavily nerfed, and a lot of the offensive stuff that he used to be able to do is no longer on the table unless knockdown is available in the corner. So Goose considers this to be the most nerfed version of the character, and I don't blame him. Kazam also does. Gave me a ton of good feedback, and I'd say unfortunately Johnny is a shell of his past self. Next is Testament, and for this one I decided to ask Yoho Spill, the owner of Vice, and a pretty solid Testament within the NA region. Seen them play multiple times and they're pretty good. They believe that the knockdown off Crow is a very nice change, helps a ton, and Stain not popping off of an OTG allows for more pressure where the Stain state is still applied, and also lets you cash out more damage, which is a problem with the character. You miss out on a lot of damage. But other than that, it's just a matter of reevaluating new matchup spreads, since Testament relies on pretty big time due to how they operate as a character. There's not really a clean way to tell yet. Orange Wild Assault nerf also kind of big for how the character routes their combos and pressures versus some characters like Johnny, who need to do it to keep them in check and not let them get away. But as we heard with the Johnny nerfs, this is good. They nerfed a couple of things about Pot and Testament specifically struggled with, as if the Fireball game versus Pot Flick isn't already a bad matchup. This might be the only patch where that matchup hasn't gotten worse. And of course with these slide head changes, I'll come in to say it as a Testament, these slide head changes are insanely good. I mean, as Testament can now punish slide head on Star, but doesn't have armor anymore. So Yoho is coming at it with the viewpoint of the character got better, but nothing too insane, which is pretty agreeable. The next one I decided to talk to was Athenia, a top 9 placer in the EVO 2025 for Gilly Year Strive, and she's a nasty jackal, been playing it for ages, and I decided to ask her what was her thoughts, and she says very promising. The explosion stuff is a neat buff, but nothing too crazy, lets you have more fun, and the nerfs to Wild Assaults basically put the character in a better spot in meta. Rush changes affect her, but she doesn't know how much yet, and when she got back to me, she said chip damage on risk and sent me this clip. this character might be top 3, not gonna lie. Up next is Nagori Yuki. So I decided to go on Hotashi's Twitter, and this is what he had to say. Simply put it, Hotashi believes that Nagori Yuki hasn't changed much, besides the system mechanics. White World Assault definitely affects him, and considering I saw this clip,
what the fuck? I got away.
I think Hotashi is a big fan of the risks changes. So simply put it, Nago is all mids now, Beyblade is now a mid, and there's not really a ton that you can do with the character that's absurd with high lows anymore, but you can still risk them up and deal so much damage, and as we saw, risk is now applied to chip damage, and Nagori Yuki could do it on a chip. So the character certainly got buffed, but nothing insane, and losing the low on Beyblade was a nasty nerf, but if in my opinion, necessary. And Hotashi's didn't say much about it, so I'm gonna say he agrees. I think Nago maybe stayed about the same, but of course slight nerf on the low. Age, now for this one I decided to ask an Irish fella, you know, Scarfelt, they play melee rage to a very high level, right? And I enjoy watching them play, and whenever I'm commentating, it's good to see their melee. They're very fun, they're very advanced, and their thoughts are very positive. Well, just how she fits into the game as a whole. The system changes are very good for her. Her changes in particular is hard to say until we see how they are in game. If Estes gives actual meaties on counter poke, that's very powerful. If Artemis launches you, lets you get disc or melee free combos, that's also powerful. As I saw from their Twitter, it was indeed powerful. So Scarfelt's view is that the character was certainly buffed, a big winner of this patch. It's time for the last character of the video. I decided to ask someone who I'm a big fan of. I absolutely love watching their gameplay, and one of my favorites, and I will glaze, Scarfed, the Chip main. And I asked, and this is what he had to say. Great change. Chip really struggled with low profile 2Ks last patch. Have anything good to him, aside from hitting them with your own 2K and whiff punishing it. So he has something to hit them with. So Scarf believes that their whiff punishment game certainly went up. As we know, Chip didn't get anything too crazy, but the whiff punishment went up. It skyrocketed, and Scarf believing that this form of whiff punishment and being less whiff punishable is a strong thing, and from what we're seeing, a pretty awesome change. He says great change for these two things. So overall, Scarf is a believer that Chip got a slight buff, but it was a good slight buff. And just like that, we've covered all the characters, and here's the tier list. And you can see the clear winners and losers. Johnny and Sin being the bigger losers, Potemkin being a decent loser as well. And some of the big winners are people like Venom for sure. Dizzy got some decent wins, but nothing too crazy. Asuka got some solid wins. Axel got a pretty decent win, if I do say so. And Kai, I gotta say, is one of the stronger winners. And Abba might be up top there, despite the fact that Curb Stomp definitely got nerfed. But I hope you enjoyed today's video, as I had a ton of fun asking these players what their thoughts were on the current meta. And I hope you guys like and subscribe. Check out the membership system, check out the Kofi, and I will be working on the next few ranked matches, and of course the next grappler video. I want to keep you guessing, let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya!